Many parents today have children who have reached the age of adulthood, yet are resisting accepting the role of independent adults. This is not how God intended His life to work for them or for you. What should you do to help them launch? Dr. Cloud will help you develop a plan to get your adult off the couch and into a full and productive life, something you both really want.
Hey guys, I'm Dr. Henry Cloud, and welcome to another edition of Solutions. This is going to be a fun one because everybody out there either has one of these that we're going to talk about, or is a sibling to one of these, or knows one of these. And what we're talking about is an adult child in the not so happy meaning of the term. Now, what is an adult child? Well, an adult child is, if you have kids, what happens? Your offspring, who were children, grow up to be adults, and then they're adults. And so your adult child would mean somebody that you brought into the world or you raised, and now they're an adult. They're still your kid, but they're an adult, and they're functioning as an adult. However, there's a different way to think about those words when we talk about boundaries with adult children. What we're also talking about, and some of you know one of these, some of you, in fact, if you don't know you have one of these, look over in the den. They're lying on the couch and they haven't gotten off the couch for 3 weeks and they're 35. Here's the deal. You know what this term means. It means they're adults in age, but they're kind of functioning like children, in that they're not taking responsibility for their lives and control of their lives and living out what an adult's really supposed to be living out, which is basically to be a self-sustaining, self-governing unit that does interdependency with other adults to make life work and isn't still dependent on you for some major area of life. So that's the problem that we're going to be addressing here, the problem of boundaries with adult children. What I mean by adult children are your kids or siblings or whoever it is that are past the legal age, but they're not living like it. And you're enabling that or helping it in some way. Very hard problem because it tugs at the heart. There's difficulties, and we're going to get into some of it in this session. Okay, so let's start out with the way that it all started and the way it's supposed to work. Now, here is the deal. Everybody is born a little person in a big person's world. And that has a particular dynamic to it where the Bible says, for example, I love this, it's in the book of Galatians, and it says that when we were children, we were under guardians and managers. Key 3 words there. Number 1, we were under. In other words, there's a one up and one down dynamic to this. And so you have, you got control of some stuff. You got control of the food. You know where it is, and the kid doesn't. You got to bring it to him. You got control of the resources. You're guarding them from a couple of things. You're guarding them from trying to be too grandiose and go drive a car before they're able to, or play video games before they're able to discern which ones are good and which ones are bad, or watch certain shows, or guard them from certain kinds of friends. And you're also guarding them from regression. Like they want to do hard things and you got to make them go do it. So a parent is a guardian in those 2 ways. You guard them against what they want to do that they're not ready for and what they can do that they don't want to do. Okay? And the second word is manager. So you're managing that process. So here's what's supposed to happen. This little person learns new things. Like the first thing is maybe like how to keep the food in their mouth, and like to not stick it in the side of their head or get the peas on their forehead. And once they can get it in their mouth, what do? They've learned that skill, so they got a little bigger, and now you're going to delegate that to Johnny. And Johnny, here's the fork, and you put the peas in your mouth, and I'm going to eat my sandwich over here. See, that's what's happened. They built the skills, right? And then they have performed. They got it in the mouth, and then you delegate that authority to them. So then what do? They learn to, get it all in the potty, right? And not in the pants anymore. You're glad once they show the skills for that, they can perform, you're going to delegate that. You feel the urge, you go deal with it. I'm out of that game. And then they learn how to pick their friends, and then they learn how to pick their courses. And then they're learning what kids they ought to play with and which ones they can't. And you're letting them make decisions. And gradually, they're learning to manage their finances, and they're learning to do this, and they're learning to that. And you're delegating control over their lives until they get to be one of the big people. They are an adult now, and they're equal, and they are in charge of their own lives. So, what's happened? You started out as the resource, and you were managing them, guarding them, and sourcing them. And then they grew up to where they sourced themselves, they guard themselves, and they manage themselves. And they're an adult. And so then what you get to do is you get to have fun with them, and you get to be close, and you get to have a different kind of relationship where you are peers in one sense. Your peers in the sense of you're not making adult decisions for them, but you do what other adults do. You give input, you give wisdom, you give guidance. And there's also a specialness to that relationship. You know, you're not just friends when you're, parents of adult children. There's always a parent there. And the Bible says, for example, honor your parents for life. And there's a lot that goes to that. It says, children, obey your parents, but we're all to honor our parents. So you only obey your parents when you're a child. Once you become an adult, you obey God and you are on your own. And therein is the problem. And everybody understands this when they see what it looks like. I mean, even I think my daughter was 8 or 9 years old. One of them, we were all, sitting there talking one day. I'm talking to the girls, and they would have been 8 and 10 or so, 9 and 11 or so. And I was talking to them about their, the boys in their class and all this. I said, so what do you girls look for in a guy? I mean, what kind of guy do you think that you want to marry? And my little one, Lizzie, you know what she said? Well, I know what I don't want. And I said, what? She said, I don't want one that's 40 and lives on his mother's couch. Oh my gosh, 9 years old. She can get this. Why can't the mothers get it, or the fathers, or the girlfriends, or the boyfriends, or whoever's enabling this? So what should the boundaries look like? Well, let me tell you a story that if you've ever heard me talk about boundaries, you've heard me tell this story, but I'm going to tell it to you again because it's exactly in this space. I was at the hospital one day, and a family came in, and it was a mom and a dad and 2 adult children of theirs, young man and young woman in their 20s, and I said, how can I help you? And the father said, I want you to help my son. I turned to the young man. I said, well, what's wrong with you? And he said, nothing. He's talking about my brother. And I said, well, where's the brother? The father said, well, he didn't want to come today. I said, why not? And he said, well, he doesn't think he has any problems. And I said, well, perhaps he doesn't, if he's not here. He says, oh, yes, he does. He has a lot of problems. And I said, well, what kind of problems? He says, well, he's got, a flunk out of school problem. I said, what do you mean? He said, he's flunked out of 3 colleges. I said, how do you flunk out of 3 colleges? He said, well, he didn't have the grades to get in the first one. And I got him in the first one because I'm on the board. And then he flunked out with all the partying. And then I got him in a second one. In the second one, I didn't want him partying in the dorm. So I bought him a nice condo off campus and didn't want him to not have study time or, have to work. So I provided him plenty of money so he could have a quiet place and have money and wouldn't have to work and could make his grades. And he flunked out again. I thought, imagine that, kids. You guys are getting this, right? And then he said he flunked out of a third one. And I said, well, that's terrible. What other kind of problems? He said, well, he's got a drug problem. I said, well, that can be serious. What's that? And he said, well, we know he's been smoking dope since he was about 15. I said, how old is he now? And he said, he's 23, I think he said. I said, okay, so he's mellow. So what other kind of problems you got? And he said, I think the thing that, just drives me the craziest is he's 23 years old. And he doesn't even have a college major. He's been in school and out of school. He doesn't even have a major. He said, when I was 23 years old, he said, I'd started 3 companies. I said, where's your son today? He said, well, he didn't want to come. I said, I know he didn't want to come, but where might I find him? And he said, well, he's in Vail. I said, Colorado? He said, yeah. I said, what's he doing in Vail? Father said, he's skiing. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, you know what? I don't think I can help your son. He said, why not? I said, because I'm a psychologist and I help people with problems. I said, frankly, I agree with him. I don't think he has any problems. He said, what are you talking about? Doesn't have any problems. I said, the man's in Vail skiing. Does that sound like somebody with problems to you? He's having a great day. I said, I'm a psychologist. I just can't help people that don't have problems. I said, but you, on the other hand, I can help you. He said, what are you talking about? I said, because you got a lot of problems. He said, what problems? I said, you got a flunk out of school problem, a drug problem, can't find my niche problem. He goes, that's not me. That's my son. I said, I don't think so. Your son is on a ski slope right now. He doesn't have those problems. You are in a psychiatric hospital. Now, you think about it. What kind of people come to psychiatric hospitals? People with problems. That would be, he said, but these aren't mine. I said, you own them. You possess them. You guys are all worried about them. You're the ones that stay up at night and obsess about this. He doesn't have a care in the world. In fact, he's got what everybody wants. New house, plenty of money, free time. He doesn't have any problems, but what do you have? You got a Saturday morning sitting here with a shrink. You got a lot of problems.